So the article I read is basically a breakdown of Immanuel Kant and the work that he did in his book Anthropology. It kind of gives a breakdown of what it was about, some of the reasons that he wrote it, and how it contributed to psychology. It also goes into the topics and psychology and what they were focused on at that time. And to kind of get into that, the some of the main things that they were focused on in that time period was the nature of the mind or the soul. And then they were looking to empirically explain the senses and imagination, intellect and reason, desire and emotion. And it was all mostly based on physics and quantitative data that was from observations. During that time period, psychology was already kind of established, so there were already new theories and ideas that were being introduced at that time. So some of his ideas sound similar to that because he wasn't published at that time, but he had some of the same ideas. So getting into the breakdown of what he was focused on, he was more focused on self improvement or self development. And a lot of the topics that he got into were self consciousness, self observation, unconsciousness, cognitive facility, sensory illusion, perception, the five senses, and memory and imagination. One of the unique things about his book was that it fit into so many different genres, because of all the topics that it touched on. So you had the different areas with psychology, and then it fit into different aspects of anthropology as well. His A lot of what he focused on was basically, or the main reason he was trying to study these things was to study all of nature or learn everything there is about the world itself and the way nature works. And some of the nice things that they noted in the article was that in his book, he gave a lot of tips on, in that aspect of self development. He talked about self improvement, how to improve your social behavior, and how to avoid cognitive pitfalls. A few of the things that he mentioned in those areas were, he claimed that attending to oneself is necessary, that doing so properly would benefit, that you would benefit from it because that would improve your social behavior. So by doing things like limiting the number of guests you have at a party, which he believed 10 was the perfect number, and then making sure that you're tending to guests with alcohol specifically to keep them entertained and please them, basically. So those were some of his philosophies at that time and some of his philosophies in his book. And that's his contribution to psychology in that area. Uh, my source was an article by Gary Hatfield titled Kant and Empirical Psychology in the 18th Century, which was in a Psychological Science Journal, Volume 9.